Good evening, YouTube. Landyn here. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be doing Chapter 5 of Atomic Habits. We're going to be reviewing that. A couple things I wanted to talk about first. Once again, I am late. That's kind of been a thing. It's really strange when you think about how much of your time is lost and how hard it is to fit things in until you actually start trying to do something that you feel is important, and then you realize in how bad a shape your self-control or your time management or your habits are. And truth be told, that's why I chose Atomic Habits as my first book, so that maybe I can get myself some control over that. I can build some better habits in regards to managing my time between working crazy hours at times. Like I did a 16-hour shift on Saturday straight. It was crazy. 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. I think it was. 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Math. But all that while still kind of sick, right? But this is going to be a little bit different today, and here's why. The last several videos that I've made, I've had a script. I've written out a full script, word for word, right here on my iPad, and I've just been reading off of it. I know that that's not the best way to watch a video. Like, you don't want to watch me if I'm just staring at my iPad, right? I'm just sure you would rather watch me looking at you, looking around my environment, maybe scanning my iPad every here and then, but it's not a teleprompter. And I would like to get more engaged with you, the audience, and actually be able to talk to you guys properly. Talking to a camera isn't a strength of mine, though. It's something completely new to me. I've never done it before. So bear with me. I'm going to be doing minimal notes. I have some bullet point notes here, but they're very bare bones. And we're going to see if I get lost in my trains of thought here or not. And if I do, I might just keep rolling. So that's what's up. Chapter 5. This is called The Best Way to Start a New Habit. We're going to read a little bit here. This is page 69. Nice. Of the book, The Best Way to Start a New Habit. In 2001, researchers in Great Britain began working with 248 people to build better exercise habits over the course of 2 weeks. The subjects were divided into 3 groups. The first was the control group. They were simply asked to track how often they exercised. The second was the motivation group. They were asked not only to track their workouts, but also to read some material on the benefits of the exercise. The researchers also explained to the group how exercise could reduce the risk of coronary heart disease and improve heart health. Finally, there was the third group. These subjects received the same presentation as the second group, which ensured that they had equal levels of motivation. However, they were also asked to formulate a plan for when and where they would exercise over the following week. Specifically, each member of the third group completed the following sentence. During the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on day, at time, in place. This is important. In the first and second groups, 35 to 38% of people exercised at least once per week. Interestingly, the motivation presentation given to the second group seemed to have no meaningful impact on behavior. But 91% of the third group exercised at least once per week. That is more than double the normal rate. Now, the sentence that they filled out is what researchers referred to as an implementation intention, which is a plan you make beforehand about when and where to act. That is how you intend to implement a particular habit. Now, most broadly speaking, the format for creating your implementation intention is like an if-then statement, or I guess a when-then statement, because it's like, When X happens, I will do Y. Excuse me. I'm sorry that I have to do that still. It is kind of dry in the basement, and I'm still a little bit sick. My antibiotics have been working wonders, but we're not there yet, fam. But going back to it, why does this work? So of all of the cues that we have, like your phone buzzing, the smell of chocolate, sound of music, blah, 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 apparently the most effective cues are a time and a location. So if you tell yourself a time and a location and a habit through apparently hundreds of research studies, that's a very effective way to stick to a habit that you want to build. It increases your ability or chance that you're actually going to follow through on that habit dramatically. Now, if you want to build out the basic form of that a little bit more, it's kind of simple still. It's like, I will do habit at time in place. Not so much when X happens, I will do Y. While that is the most basic form of it, it's kind of useless for us, right? You're trying to build a habit. I'm trying to build a habit. We get more clear, we get more specific, you get more results, I would expect. I will do this habit. I will meditate at 7 a.m. in my living room daily. You know, I will read my book at 9:30 p.m. in my bed. And then I would find that it would maybe be helpful to place that book on your pillow, not even on your nightstand, because then you can ignore it. But if it's on your pillow, you physically have to move it to go to bed. And that just makes you so much more likely to actually pick it up and read it. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking like, my videos keep coming out late. Maybe I should actually implement some of this myself and do this in my own life with regards to my videos. And I will. This weekend was just particularly rough, especially with being sick and working 16 hours on Saturday. So that was a thing. Anyway, another portion of this implementation intention that is useful is that it removes the question from each day of, should I work on this, or what am I going to do today? Because you already have your habit kind of mapped out, like each day I'm going to work on this habit at this time in this location, right? So it removes the question of when you're going to, say, record your YouTube video. Maybe. Yeah, I think I'm going to implement this, and then I'm going to try and get these things out on time. Honestly, this is killing me. But that's implementation intention, and that is the first of two kind of habit-related functions that James Clear goes through in chapter 5. The second one being something called habit stacking, which was apparently created or first mentioned by a guy named B.J. Fogg in his Tiny Habits program. And it's based on something called the Diderot effect. Now, the Diderot effect is actually a negative thing. So apparently back in the 1700s, there was this French philosopher. His name was Denis Diderot. His daughter was getting married, and he was very poor. Apparently, he'd been poor forever. But he also had written and founded one of the greatest encyclopedias at the time. So word got out that this guy's daughter was getting married and that he was too poor to be able to afford the wedding. And Catherine the Great of Russia offered to buy his encyclopedia and book collection for £1,000 at the time, which is roughly equivalent to $150,000 at the time of writing this book. So good money. And of course, he accepted. Now, apparently, she also offered him a job yearly as like her librarian. So, residual income, that's pretty cool. But with that money, he paid off his daughter's wedding and he bought himself a scarlet robe. And then the story goes that as he was looking around his house, his scarlet robe looked too nice for the things around it. So he started replacing the things that were around his scarlet robe, and he would buy fancy sculptures and new furniture and all new clothing. And this led into something that is now called the Diderot effect, where one purchase will lead to a spiral of more purchases. Say something like, you buy a new dress, well, now you need new shoes. If you buy a new set of earrings, well, you need a necklace to match, right? That sort of thing. So that leads into the theory of connected behavior, or a notice of something that's kind of like connected behavior, which is how habit stacking is kind of based. It's based on connecting one behavior to another and basically splitting two habits that you already do and sliding your new habit in there. So if you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth, but you want to start washing your face every morning too, it's like you wake up in the morning, you go to the washroom, you wake up in the morning, you go to the washroom, you brush your teeth. Well, maybe you just slide that wash your face right in there and stack that habit. That is the premise of habit stacking. One more time, sorry. Excuse me. I think by the next time I launch a video, I should be not coughing anymore. Here's really hoping. So, in basic terms, if implementation intention was I will do habit, when X happens, I will do Y. Building that out, that was more like I will do habit at time in location. Habit stacking is a little bit different, a little bit more refined, but kind of the same principle. After X, I will do Y. After brushing my teeth, I will wash my face. So that is a good way to kind of stack a habit, but you have to make sure that you're stacking it in a way that makes sense. So if you're doing something like, I wake up in the morning and I go downstairs and make toast, well, you're not going to wash your face in between those two things, right? That's not something that they don't connect together. And that's one of the major things about habit stacking, apparently, is that the triggers, they have to be relatable and obvious. So the habit that precedes the one you're trying to implement has to be close to or connected to your new habit in some way, or at least have a cue or a trigger that makes you think about and be more likely to act on the new habit that you're trying to implement in there. It's like if you're trying to meditate, this is an example from the book. If you're trying to meditate in your living room every morning, but morning is a really chaotic time in your household and your kids are running around, it's not a good time to try and meditate, right? You got to make it make sense. Now, that leads to a couple of other things. There's a couple ways you could think about that. A way to find the right trigger. You could brainstorm what your habits are. Or James Clear recommends listing out a 2-column list. That is what habits you already do in a day, and then things that intrinsically happen to you in a day regardless. Things like the sun rising and the sun setting, right? So he says, writing down all of that in 2 columns, the left column being the things you do in the day. You wake up, brush my teeth, eat breakfast, go to work, blah, blah, blah. And then on the right column, I guess that's opposite for you guys. the sun rises, a bird chirps, I get a text message, somebody's stupid while driving. That happens every day where I am. And then the sun sets again, right? Finding somewhere in between all of those things where you can slot your new habit and use one of those existing habits as a trigger is apparently a good way to stack a habit, or a good way to look at stacking habits. Now, if you want help with that, or if you want a template on that, James Clear actually has I think he said it's a template in his book, as well as like a write out for assisting you with finding a place to stack your habit at atomichabits.com/habit stacking. I will put a link to that in the description as well, if that's how links work. I don't know if I can just write that out or not. I'm gonna have to figure that out, but you'll see a link to it at some point in time. So again, this works best with highly specific cues that are immediately actionable. Like I said, so something like you want to start washing your face. Well, highly specific cue that makes it immediately actionable is when I wake up in the morning, I go to my bathroom and I go to brush my teeth. But since you're already there, you're already at the tap, at the sink. You have the cloths there necessary if you keep washcloths in your bathroom. I mean, my wife has a full drawer of them. I could just go through them anytime I want. But I don't use washcloths. I just raw dog that bar of soap and put it right on my face, right? So you just rock up there. You're already there. Nice and easy. Actionable and highly specific. When I wake up, I go to the bathroom. I wash my face, then I brush my teeth, right? Pretty simple. The first law of behavior change, as discussed in the earlier chapters, is to make it obvious. And that's a big part of why making your cues and triggers work together, your old habits and your new habits, that's why that is important, because you have to make it obvious. If it's not obvious to you, you're not going to do it. And if it's not convenient for you, I think you're not going to do it either. Which is why I say, if you are trying to meditate in the morning and your kids are running around being loud and breaking shit and stuff, that's not going to work, right? But let's get into the chapter summary. I'm done rambling at you guys. I've rambled long enough. Chapter summary, page 79. 1. The first law of behavior change is to make it obvious. 2. The two most common cues are time and location. 3. Creating an implementation intention is a strategy you can use to pair a new habit with a specific time and location. 4. The implementation intention formula is I will behavior at time in location. 5. Habit stacking is a strategy you can use to pair a new habit with a current habit. And 6. The habit stacking formula is after I current habit, I will new habit. And that's it. That's chapter 5. I hope you've enjoyed my insane ramblings on Chapter 5 of Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm still really trying to hold back a cough. Later in the week, so Friday, maybe Saturday, we'll see. I'm going to shoot for Friday because that's when I originally said. So now I got to do some implementation intention and actually implement this habit so that a video comes out on Friday. That will be our discussion. I'm going to pull an idea out of the chapter. It may or may not be one of the ones that we've already discussed, and we'll go over that more then. In the meantime, I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and I will talk to you all soon. If you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. Share it with your friends, people who are struggling with habits. I've got like 3 subscribers. That's awesome. It would be more awesome to have more. And the more these videos go on, the better they get. Hopefully. At least I have a mic now. Anyway, much love. Talk to you later, guys.